up, everybody? This is KT, and welcome to Under Construction, a podcast where we talk about any projects we're working on, whether it's something professionally, something personal, something at home, just kind of real people talking about real shit going on in their lives. Today is my first solo podcast, my first podcast in general, but I apologize in advance for production and how choppy it is, and hopefully it's relevant. I don't know, but that's the goal, is just kind of talk and maybe something resonates. But I got some really cool guests lined up for future episodes. Today, to kick it off, is solo, and thinking about what I wanted to talk about in this episode. I had a few different ideas. I was going back and forth, and something kind of came back around, and it kind of stuck with me. Something that in previous careers that I used to talk about a lot in my leadership roles and or my trainer roles, and always talk about the choices we have and how we show up as a choice, and how we decide to show up really is what starts to build our brand. And that could be our brand as employees, as business owners, as fathers, as husbands, wives, as children, whatever it is. And how we show up is a choice. Now, everyone has shitty days, but it's really having more days, more good days than bad, is really all we could ask for. So, but how we show up really can kind of really tip that scale in the right direction. And the way I think about that is kind of the consequences of us not showing up in a way that is really giving our all, or being completely present. And it reminds me of the story of the law of the lid, John Wick, where there's a story about if you put fleas in a jar, and because fleas can jump extremely high. They could jump out of any jar um, that that anyone would put one in. I don't know why anyone would put fleas in a jar, but for this metaphor, the fleas are in a jar, and they could easily jump out of the jar with no lid on it. Their potential's through the roof, or through the lid. I know I'm stupid, whatever. So they will jump, and they'll start hitting the lid, and once they realize that that lid's on there, they'll condition themselves, and they'll adjust their jump height because they won't stop jumping. They're constantly gonna keep going. They're persistent little bastards, but they learn, and they taught themselves that they should only jump a certain height, because otherwise they're gonna hit their head on the top of the lid, or their body, whatever it is. Fleas, I don't know, fleas anatomy. But so they jump up, they hit the lid, then they start jumping just right before they hit the lid. Anyway, that's them conditioning themselves. Now, you take that lid off after they've kind of set that bar for themselves. Those fleas will not jump out of that jar, because now that is their 100%. They no longer can jump to their full potential, because they let that lid determine their 100%. And when you're looking at like consequences of phoning shit in, half-assing, showing up, not being present, you're putting those little lids on yourself. And this may be true or not, but this is how I look at it. And I'm no expert. I'm no professional in anything, but just kind of my perspective is, when we do phone shit in, when we do half-ass stuff, no matter what it is, and we put that lid on ourselves, it chips away at our full potential, because now we show up in half-ass position. Maybe let's talk in terms of like your career, and I'll talk about like my very first position at a pet store. Not first position, but this was kind of like a weird in between for me. I was just graduating high school, and I decided to join the military straight out of high school. My parents, we didn't have money for college, and I was nowhere near good enough in school to get any type of college paid for. So, a small, tiny little town, graduated like 50 people. I decided I needed to get out of there. Otherwise, I saw what was there. I saw what my options were there. I chose to see if I could go create some other ones. So I joined the military. What else? What else does a broke ass kid do in a small ass town? That's never been anywhere. So I joined the military, and that's where I started. I learned a lot. I grew up a lot, but I had this. I was working at this pet store before like after high school, and before I actually shipped off to basic training. And when I applied for this job, it was from the Wanted ad, so a newspaper for anyone that's never looked at it, seen a newspaper. We used to actually have to flip open a newspaper and look for jobs in there. And I saw this job at this pet store, and it said $20 an hour. Blah 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 blah. So I go in, I tell him I want that job that said $20 an hour, and he was like, "Do you have a CDL?" And I'm like, "No, I rode my bike here." So he's like, "All right, cool, $10 an hour. You can sweep the floors and clean the cages." I was like, all right, whatever, it is what it is. The first thing this old man who owned the pet store was, I don't, I wouldn't do him any justice by describing him, but everyone can picture old man set in his ways, a business owner, and kind of does things a certain way and likes things done a certain way, and which I respect. So the first thing he had me do was sweep the warehouse floor. So the store was set up like the first like third of the store was their retail space, and then in the back there was a warehouse where they had surplus inventory, and they sold pets and pet supplies, and they also did some like landscaping stuff. Anyway, we had this like cement mixer thing, and he had his own topsoil mixture, and I would have to make those big 40-pound bags of this topsoil mixture was part of what I had to do, and they had to be certain weight and certain mixture and certain everything. But whatever, I don't know, I'm talking about that. But the first thing he had me do was sweep the floor. So and I'm sitting there thinking like, all right, uh my pay just got cut in half, which $20 an hour back then I didn't deserve it. That was a lot of money. I was like, wow, that's crazy. But so I got it, but I had a choice I had to make, right? So I'm now starting a job that I thought was going to pay me twice as much as it's going to pay me, and I have to do that job. I have to keep the mindset of doing that job like I'm getting paid what I expect to get paid. Because if I don't, I'm going to put a lid on myself, right? And not that I knew it was doing this consciously back then, but when you look back and you reflect on things, you start to realize like, wow, you could pull some really good stuff out of your past experiences. And anyway, I swept the floor and blah blah blah. I worked there for however long I worked there before I went to basic training. But one point I remember the old man telling me, it was like, you remember when you first came and your first day on the job, I had you sweep the floor. I was like, yeah, I remember. Yeah, of course I remember that. And and he said that, like that's the first thing he has anyone ever do, and that's how he kind of judges someone's work ethic is by how they sweep a floor. But I obviously I'd been in at the job for a few months at that point, so obviously I passed the test, which was a good thing, I guess. But the where this kind of hit home is I leave that job, I'm in the military, and I come back home for some break, whether it was in between basic and my AIT, or maybe it was something else. But I was talking to my brother about that pet store and that job, and he said he had run in there a few months after I left one day, and he had gotten something for his pets, and the old man was in there flipping through some paperwork and all this other stuff. And usually he wasn't really even out front, like I mean, a little bit, but he didn't really interact with many people. So my brother just out of the blue asked him, he said, hey, did you guys replace Chris yet? And the old man looked at him, and he said he kind of took him by surprise, because he looked at him, he said I'll never be able to replace Chris, and then just went back to what he was doing. When my brother told me that, I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. That felt good. When that man, that business owner, that ex-employer of mine talked about me, thought about me as a person, and what my brand was, I was someone that was irreplaceable to him. And that was really cool to me. I went through my military career, and when I look back at, there's certain things I can point out and point to and say that was because of how I showed up. That was because of me making sure I wasn't putting a lid on myself. And I can look back at those things now and kind of label that as that. And it's interesting, and when you start to reflect on your past experiences, you can pull a lot of really good stuff out of there. So yeah, my military experience there's a lot of things in there like that. Leaving there, I got out after 4 years, and I moved to Florida with my wife at the time, and we had our my daughter while we were in Florida. I worked when I was in Florida. I worked for a company that that I did security for residential communities in South Florida. Um, this is where I first like, and again, this is all reflection. I'm never having having these like these thoughts while things are going on. It's all about reflection and looking back and kind of analyzing and figuring out what did go well, what did go wrong. But I look back at that job, and so I showed up the same way. I mean, at this point, I had a family to support. We got pregnant, and um I worked a lot there. I had to work a lot of overtime to make sure we could pay the bills. And story for another time. But at that job is where I first started to get start seeing haters and people that when you do show up and you give 100%, you give your all, and you do care about how you're being perceived, that you're being perceived as someone that can be counted on and someone that's reliable. People around you that don't care about that or that do have lids on themselves, they're going to start to hate always in every aspect of everything. If you're showing up in a way that takes shines a light on you, you're going to have haters. So that's where I first experienced that, and really just one colleague really just didn't. It seemed like he would call me the golden boy because I would get better assignments than him because I was the one that was there, and I was the one that showed up, and I was the one that didn't bitch about if I did have to have a shitty assignment. I just went and did my job, and that's a whole nother part of it. You can show up and you can give 100%, but if if you're bitching about it the whole way, that's not a good look either. Just kind of throwing that out there, but yeah, that job, when I left there, I was moving back to New York, and they actually offered me my own location to get me to stay. Actually, sorry, I wasn't going back to New York. I'd gotten a job at TSA because now I had a daughter. I need health benefits. There was no health insurance there. I went and worked for TSA, but they offered me my own location to stay, where I was going to be my own boss. I could have my own site, and that was really cool. And that's what happens. I again made myself to where they were going to give me something that was really unheard of. Like, you don't just get that, especially with how long I'd been there, and to just get me to stay on board and to be part of their team again in their camp, like on their side. And that's a really cool feeling, and you don't get that feeling by half-assing anything. You don't get that feeling because you don't get people wanting you to be there and wanting and knowing that they can rely on you by showing up and phoning it in, or showing up and bitching about everything every single step along the way. You get that way by being conscious of your brand image, being conscious of how you're being perceived, being conscious of what's important to others around you, and how you can make sure that you're always part of the solution and not the problem. That all builds your brand. That puts positive deposits in your brand image, and then it's magnified because all these people that you're around, and the people that see you, and the people that do see you show up this way, um that are perceiving you in that way, that's just magnifying your brand image, because now they're speaking highly of you when they talk to others, and that's sending out positive vibrations into the universe, whether you believe in that or not. I want as many people, when my name comes up in a room that I'm not in, I want that, as much of that, to be positive as possible, because I don't want that negative energy anywhere. So this is a way to kind of manage that. And um a lot of people don't care what people think about them, and I don't really either. I don't care what every person in the world thinks about me. I have a very few specific people that I truly care how they feel and what they think about me. But I do care about how people perceive me, because if if I'm being perceived in a negative way, whether it's true or not, that person's perception is their reality. And if that perception is negative, that's what's going to be put out in the world. Not everyone's going to love you, and there's plenty of people that talk negative about me, and that's okay. But I know that that I managed to have more people that speak highly of me than that talk negative of me. Yeah, that was a tangent, but talking more about how we build our brand. And just like, I mean, every company has their culture, and whether they like it or not, you 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 might work for a company that has never ever talked about culture, and it's not part of their thing, and it doesn't really exist. even that company has a culture. They have a culture of a non-existent culture, which is kind of crazy. But every company has a culture, and whether it's good, bad, or ugly, um, it's there. Just like every person has a brand image. It's your personality. It's how you show up. It's who you are. It's what people say about you when you're not there. That's your brand. And if you can manage to navigate that in a way where your brand is being looked at in a positive light, then I think you're doing something really well. Everyone's going to have off days, and everyone's going to get sick. Everyone's going to just not want to be present, and it's important to check out. It's important to take your time when you need it. But and this is kind of what really made this come full circle, other than kind of what I'm going to get to about how or why I'm talking about this in general, and why this is something I'm working on. This is something that I used to share with groups of people, and now I'm finding myself in a spot um where I put the lid on myself, and I feel like I'm worried about how I'm being perceived in my positions and things like that. So this is relevant because this is not just me saying, "Hey, everyone start showing up and giving 100% every day all the time." No, it's me saying I'm trying to get myself back to that. If any of you are kind of this resonates with you and you have the same thoughts, let me know, and kind of let's look. I'd love to have a conversation or drop a comment, whatever it is. But there's this right now in my current position. I know that I put a lid on myself, and but just kind of just last week, I kind of remembered who I was, and I just funny because I just got these bracelets for me and my business partner, my colleague, and they say, remember who the fuck you are. And that I got those last week, and then I got this. So long story short, I got this message from one of my ex employers, and it was when I was working for a company that did in-home sales, home improvement stuff. And he forwarded me this screenshot of a call that came into their corporate headquarters saying, "Hey, can you please reach out to this customer? They wanted to speak to their sales guy." And I haven't worked for the company for like 2.5 years. I don't know, but I still keep in touch with them. And the branch manager and see him from time to time. But he texted me and he said, "Hey, this was a customer of yours. Can you call them?" And I'm like, sure. So I called them, and I remembered them immediately. As soon as I heard her voice, I remembered which customer it was, and they gave me a T-shirt while I was there. Like that's the first thing I said. "Oh, you gave me a T-shirt." But she called literally. I'm like wondering like, okay, what's wrong? What needs to be fixed? She just called to ask me how I was doing. She's like, "We haven't seen you, and it's been like 3 years. We just wanted to see how you were doing." And I literally that job, if I was in someone's house more than an hour, then I was taking a very long time. So I spent an hour with these people, but how I showed up and how I was present, that made them think about me 3 years later. And I guarantee that's not the first time, and every time they thought about me, I guarantee it was in a positive light, because you don't make that call if it's not. Usually only happens when it's a negative thing. So that was a really cool thing that happened. And that's what really made me, when I was thinking about, man, I want to do a solo episode. This is probably the most nerve-wracking thing you can think of. I took about 9,000 takes. You know what? Right now it's 7:23 p.m. and on Mother's Day, and I said, I just got to do that. I got to go 30 minutes. um I because I really want to get this message out there, and it's not like this is gonna change your life, but maybe it gives you a little bit of inspiration to say, hey, I could show up better here. I could show up a little bit more here, and stop putting these lids on ourselves, because when we do that, we're just chipping away at our potential. And if you do that long enough, your what used to be your 100% you is unattainable. You're maxing out at 75, 70%, whatever it is. And you're leaving a lot of potential on the table, and it's just because we conditioned ourselves to accept and to let ourselves perform or show up in a way that's not really us. Because think about, if you were working on your passion, if your job was something that you're passionate about, there's no way, it's impossible for you to show up with less than 100%. But if you don't get to that position where you can work on your passion before you've put lids on yourself throughout the entire path, once you finally get there and you finally start to work on that thing you've been working towards, that business that you've been trying to build, or that passion project, you've now reconditioned your potential. And that's just my opinion. Everyone's different, but I like to look at it that way. And that kind of keeps me in the space where it keeps me like, if I don't use it, I lose it. If I don't, if I and I'm starting to lose it right now with that in my current position. And I can see how I could show up a lot more. I could be a lot more present. I could be a lot more involved. And I'm starting to feel myself hit that lid. And these are things where I know, like, if I'm talking and I'm sharing, I'm gonna break through that easily. And it's so funny how, you can kind of use yourself as an example of what to do and what not to do. And really, that's what this whole premise is about, man. Just talking about things like this, and where we are now, and what can I do? What can we do next? Like I said, I have some really cool guests coming on. I'm super excited about all this stuff. I'm right now a one-man show, so I want to push out as much as I can, but I also want to make sure that that we're showing up with substance. It's never too late. Companies rebrand all the time. Companies pivot and shift their culture all the time. And if you find yourself where your brand images might be not what you want it to be or what you expected it to be, maybe start with how you show up. Start looking at how you show up. Start looking at how maybe some people perceive you, and how you can start tweaking that. Because you're not going to be able to change the reality with words. Actions speak louder than words, and their perception of you is based on what they see and what they hear. But we all know that what people see you do holds a lot more weight than what people hear you say you're going to do. So that's important. Start looking at that. And like I said, share with me, if post a comment, message me, whatever it is. I'm looking for people to come and tell their stories. Like I said, I have some really cool people that I'm excited to get on here and to share with everyone. But I'm always going to be looking for more. And then this is real shit. This is real life, and it's important. And I know a lot of this episode was kind of dry and just kind of me talking at you, but I promise it'll be a lot more fun, and a lot more funny when I have guests in here. We're just chatting about our lives, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. And thank you for anyone that did listening. This is me assuming that someone actually listened to this for 30 minutes, which is crazy. But I appreciate anyone that stuck through it. If you got anything out of it, please share that. I want to hear from you, and see if my perception really sticks with anyone. Do you guys think what I'm saying makes sense? But all of that, I'm just super excited. I appreciate everyone. And you don't have to become irreplaceable to everyone. Just become irreplaceable to the people that are important to you, and don't let becoming irreplaceable at work make you replaceable at home, because that can happen too. And you just got to be careful. It's all about being present. There's never going to be a perfect balance, but if you can be present in the moments that you do have, and you show up for the people that care about you and that you care about, then I don't know how you can really go wrong. Just stay with it. But it's encouraging. This is like right now I have my perception of my current situation, and just talking through it and reminding myself of who the fuck I am and what I've done and where I've gone is enough, hopefully, for me to start pulling myself out of what I need to pull out of. This is something that's going to be a constant reminder to me. This is my passion project. So if I can start bringing back out my 100% here, I know it's going to show up everywhere else. And some of you might look at this and say, this is your 100%, then you got a long way to go, buddy. But that's okay, because we're working on it, and we're under construction. And the Rome wasn't built in a day, and I don't think I'm ever going to be finished. I'll still be working on it until the day I'm in the ground. Again, appreciate everyone. Good luck with everything you're working on, and I will see you next time. Hopefully with a guest, and someone that can share their experiences, and you don't just have to listen to me talk. But I look forward to it, and everyone, God bless. Good luck.